Secretary, Department of Children and Families, Siobhan Harris, our DEM, Emergency Management Director, Kevin Guthrie, and then we've got Sandra Tabfume, Emergency Management Chief here in Sarasota County, and then our really carrying a lot of clout legislative leaders, Senator Jim Boyd and Representatives McFarland and Robinson. So I want to thank them for all their work and thank them for being here. So we've recently, of course, had Hurricane Debbie, and when you have these storms, there's a lot of different things that can happen. We've had storms like Hurricane Michael, which hit the Panhandle in 2018, that was almost like a tornado going through, Category 5 winds, and could obliterate things. We also have storms like Debbie that just leave a lot of water, and so it's not that the winds are knocking over all the buildings, but it's just areas are taking a lot of water, and we saw that from Sarasota, Bradenton, all the way up to north central Florida, where we saw the water get really, really high. So we prepare for whatever may come down the pike, and so for this storm, we had 17,000 linemen and utility crews ready to assist as soon as the storm passed. We activated the Florida National Guard and State Guard, and we had 2,400 guardsmen ready to go. We had 7 urban search and rescue teams. We had tarps, meals, bottles of water stationed, ready to go. We've distributed a number of the meals and bottles of water and some of the tarps immediately after the storm. But you're doing this, Florida Department of Transportation, clear the streets, make sure the bridges can be open. All these things happen, and we had, because of the linemen there, we had 675,000 accounts power restored within like 48 hours. And compare that, Houston got a storm similar to Debbie, and they had millions of people without power for a long time. So this is not something that is the norm in terms of how these responses work. So we appreciate that. But basically our view is we'd rather be prepared, over-prepared, and on this storm we were over-prepared. There were things that we did not need to deploy that we had ready, but we'd rather do that and be able to meet the needs. And then when things happen, we improvise. I mean, when they had the bridges that were knocked out in Ian, those weren't our bridges at the state level. They asked for help. We went in. We got those back up and running and connected people to their homes again. When we had some of the utility companies, the cooperatives, and some of these in Southwest Florida that weren't really moving forward as fast on the power restoration, we surged mutual aid. We had these linemen from other companies show up to be able to get it done. And that's just kind of the way that we see things. Now, this storm is the first storm that included Hope, Florida. So Hope, Florida was spearheaded by the First Lady several years ago, and the impetus for it is just the recognition that government cannot solve all these problems that we deal with as a people. And particularly when you start talking about people that are less fortunate, they may need a hand up. Putting people on a dependency on government is not going to lead to them being able to realize their dreams, and we've seen a lot of government bureaucracies fail. So what Hope Florida sought to do is to recognize we have all these resources throughout our communities, our churches, our charities, individual volunteers, businesses that want to help, that we can tap into. And so rather than think government and be in that silo, let's use government as a way to connect people in need to all these great resources throughout our community. And so that's been applied to things like the Department of Children and Families. And since that has launched, I guess probably about a year and a half into it now, there have been 30,000 people who have either completely or partially eliminated the need for any public assistance at all. So you're moving people to a pathway to self-sufficiency where they're going to be able to do very well. So it's better for those folks. It's also better for the taxpayers. And so based on our efforts so far, Hope Florida related initiatives are projected to save taxpayers almost $1 billion over the next 10 years. Why? Why? Because you have needs. Those needs are being met by all these great resources we have. So first of all, that's less government tax money needs to go, but then you're also getting people on a road to self-sufficiency, so they're not going to be back in a year or 18 months, most likely, needing taxpayer assistance. So it's a great model. So it started with the Department of Children and Families. It's now in a lot of our other agencies, Department of Elder Affairs, Veterans Affairs. We're working to integrate it there. And this is something that's really meaningful. And just as a veteran, one of the observations I had, I remember when I left active duty, I got like a packet, transition packet. Look, I didn't need anything. I was fine. But I couldn't even understand. It was all bureaucracy. And so you have a VA, it's a massive bureaucracy. You have problems with connecting veterans to benefits or even help. But yet I look in Florida, we've got so many different groups that are designed to help veterans. We've got businesses that want to contribute to help veterans. We have all this. So why not use that as a way to link the veteran with all these great resources? And it may be mental health resources which are there in these groups. It may be things involving job placement. So this is something that's really, really significant. I think it's been a home run. We have other states that have come down here, studied what we're doing with Hope Florida, and then they're implementing it in their states, respectively. I mean, that's I think, a telltale sign that this has been successful. So we're here today on the heels of Hurricane Debbie to announce that Hope Florida will now become a permanent component of the Florida Division of Emergency Management and our responses to natural disasters. This expansion is going to be called Activate Hope. This will travel. Activate Hope will go directly to the communities impacted by the disaster to help connect Floridians with outside resources to provide food, household goods, home repairs, as more. And first of all, just those resources that will be connected are important, because what we've seen is there's a lot of resources out there. When disaster strikes, we have groups that their sole mission is to respond to disasters, some affiliated with the church, some of them other types of private initiatives, and they want to help. But one of the things that happens when disaster strikes is a lot of times people just don't know where to turn. It's confusing, it's very stressful, and so Hope Florida can really serve as a way that if you go to the Hope bus, they're going to be able to point you in the right direction. They're going to have these resources that they're going to be linked with. And I think it's going to be really, really significant. Now, we do have what's called, so one of the First Lady's insights was you had bureaucrats in like the Department of Children and Families talking about some type of maybe a TANF grant or something. We've transformed that into what's called Hope Navigators. So the job of the person working in the Department of Children and Family is to navigate the person in need through all the available resources apart from government, and to help actively link them with those resources that are there. So we are going to have Hope Navigators as part of this. We are also going to use state employees who volunteer to help with the disaster. And it's like, disasters come and go. I mean, we prepare for them. We don't always have them. So it's not like you're just going to have a massive people on payroll for the whole time. You surge when these things happen. So we'll be having people integrate into Activate Hope from other state agencies on basically a volunteer basis, because what we found is folks volunteer anyways, and so now we have a great way for them to do it in a way that's going to be most meaningful. So you're going to have, and we saw it in after Debbie in some of the areas, we have a Hope bus, and you'll have Activate Hope will be working out of the Hope bus. They will be at any pods, points of distribution sites, and this is when people can drive their car through. They get food, water, ice, tarps after disasters. We also set up the small business recovery centers. We set up other multi-agency resource centers. So this is going to be a one-stop shop, and that Hope bus will really play a central role. So we've already seen this start after Hurricane Debbie. We had the Hope bus both in Sarasota and in the Big Bend. Hope Navigators and volunteers have provided service to over 300 people just in the aftermath of Debbie, which, while it did leave significant water in pockets compared to like a Hurricane Ian, what was a storm that was less strong in that respect and had less impacts across our state than some of the other ones that we know about. So 300, that's pretty significant for the first time out of the gate, and I think you're going to see that only grow as we go forward. So I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be really, really good to be able to have this. If you are a Floridian who is impacted by Hurricane Debbie, you can actually now visit hopeflorida.com, and you can click on Hurricane Debbie Recovery at the top of the page to get help. And the thought is that when these disasters happen, you go to Hope Florida, we'll have, and hopefully we don't have any more this season, but you will have the name disaster. People can click, and then they can see the resources that are available. And there's so many different things that happen. I mean, after Ian, we had these charities that come in, and they'll muck and gut the houses for the residents, and particularly for elderly. It's a big positive. And then they'll help restore the people's homes, fix their roofs, do all kinds of things. A lot of people have no idea that that's something that can be available. Even little things like Chick-fil-A setting up a site. You know, if you don't have power in a given community, to be able to get a hot meal, Chick-fil-A goes, other different food vendors go. That makes a huge, huge difference for people. So this is all going to be on the website, and I think that's going to help folks a lot. Additionally, we're also happy to announce that our new toll-free Hope line at 833-GET-HELP is active today for Floridians to call, 833-GET-HELP, and that will be something where people can be pointed in the right direction. So I'm excited about this. I think that this is a way we could easily rest on the laurels. If you look at disaster response in Florida compared to just about everywhere else, I mean, it's night and day. What Kevin and his team have done, what your local folks here in Sarasota and other parts have been able to do, really working well to be efficient and effective at doing this. And you go back and look at some of these other responses. I mean, you know, how did New Orleans handle Katrina? How did the Louisiana handle Katrina? Not very good. How did Hurricane Andrew, when that hit in '92, I mean, it was like almost a war zone down there for a long time. You just didn't have the same level of really rapid response. And so we're doing that at the state of Florida. We're proud of that. The power restoration, I think we set a record with Ian with the fastest power restoration. It was like 3 million people in a relatively short period of time. Then Idalia last year, not quite as many, but even faster. And then I think this one was probably the fastest, right? If you look at it was in rural areas, which some of those are harder to do. So that's great, and we want to strive to do well. But it's like, okay, you don't just rest on that. How can you do better? And I think one of the things that we've seen is just people are confused when these disasters strike. They don't always know where to turn. Well, Activate Hope is really gonna help remedy that, and Activate Hope is going to be something where people know you find that Hope bus. It's not just about what that particular part of state government can do. Far from it. That is the kind of node that is connected to all these different other areas, and I think it's going to really be a force multiplier for Kevin and his team. I mean, Kevin has handled a lot of this, quite frankly, himself in his agency, but really, he shouldn't have to be navigating, where the barbecue is going to go in Madison County versus where this is going somewhere else, or how many. Let's get this under this umbrella and be able to provide people with a menu of options to be able to help them when they're in need. So I want to thank the First Lady. I want to thank Siobhan Harris. I want to thank Kevin Guthrie for really integrating this thoughtfully in a way that's really going to make an impact. And so with that, I'm pleased to introduce the star of the show herself, my wife.
I don't know about that, but I will say this is the best team in the business, with the governor's leadership and obviously with the people sitting to my right and many more people who are behind the scenes. When an emergency happens, they activate and they know what they need to do to help people in need. And this is really just the next layer upon that. And it's really humbling and heartwarming to be here to expand Hope Florida and the philosophy behind it, because I really think of people that the governor and myself have been able to help in storms. We've been out with the Southern Baptist Convention. We have been at food distribution lines where People are driving up in their cars, and I'll never forget, there was a mother with 2 kids in the back seat. We rolled down the window, and the governor and I went over, and we were helping to give food and whatever aid that she needed, and she just had tears in her eyes because she wasn't sure what to do next. Her home had flooding, there was mold, there wasn't electricity at the time, although as they were getting the restoration up and faster than anybody else, but she was just uncertain of what to do next. And how nice is it now to know that there is one number that you can call and talk to a human being who is there to be able to help navigate you through all of the resources that are already there. It's all there. You have the faith-based communities who are willing to step up and help. You have the nonprofits. You have the private sector who's willing to donate money or to supply volunteer hours to be able to help. It's all there. It's how do you make the connection with the people in need to help them find the help that they deserve in an emergency. And so that's why this is very exciting, and it makes perfect sense for why it would be a part of the Department of Emergency Management. And so I think of that mom, now she will know. You can call 833-GET-HOPE. You call that number, and you're going to be able to talk to someone who will navigate you to be able to find whatever you might need to be able to get through whatever it might be. And so this has been very heartwarming to be able to see this expand and grow by leaps and bounds. And I just, as the governor and I both, we never want to see anyone suffer. And so that's the whole impetus behind why we started Hope Florida, is because there is hope and there is help out there, particularly exterior of government. You have all of these great people who are willing and able to help. They just need to know where to turn. And now we've created the apparatus to be able to make the connection and then get out of the way so people can have a little bit of hope. So I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Governor, for helping with this mission.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be here with Governor DeSantis, First Lady Casey DeSantis, Director Guthrie, and local leaders for this exciting Hope Florida announcement. Since First Lady DeSantis launched Hope Florida in the fall of 2021, it has truly taken on a life of its own. In addition to enhancing the way we serve vulnerable children and families at DCF, more state agencies have used its first-of-a-kind model to develop Hope Florida programming that addresses the unique needs of the populations they serve. And the results have been outstanding. You heard the governor mention the results that we've had at the department. Today's official launch of Activate Hope is another demonstration of Governor and First Lady DeSantis' commitment to anticipating our residents' needs and galvanizing the necessary resources and supports to help. Hurricane season can be a nerve-wracking time for individuals in our state, especially for those severely impacted by a storm, trying to navigate services and trying to figure out the road to recovery. In addition, in the aftermath of hurricanes, there are always nonprofits, faith institutions, and private businesses who want to help but don't know where to start. Activate Hope solves that, so Floridians in need can begin the journey to complete recovery as quickly as possible. At its core, Hope Florida connects those who need help with those who want to help. Individuals who contact us are sometimes having their worst days, and our Hope Navigators help them restore hope. The same principles that we use during normal times with Hope Florida are replicated through Activate Hope in partnership with the Department of Emergency Management, and it just makes sense. We've had the pleasure of working with DEM on a number of prior storms, the department in its capacity at DCF, and I've seen firsthand how Kevin and his team work tirelessly to make sure Florida's first in the nation in disaster response. And so we're so elated to be able to join forces, join arms, to make sure we can play a pivotal role through Hope Florida in helping individuals get back on their feet. Hope Navigators are available to meet individuals at disaster recovery centers or our multi-agency resource centers. And if you're not able to make it to one of those sites, we will come to you. While canvassing neighborhoods here in Sarasota in the aftermath of Hurricane Debby, individuals remarked to our Hope Navigators how grateful they were that we were coming to them, as so many had experienced a total loss of their home and personal belongings due to flooding from a nearby creek. Our Hope Navigators took the time to listen to their stories, provide tangible items such as hygiene supplies and snacks, as well as initiating referrals to a wide array of local resources standing ready to help them rebuild. This just encapsulates the power of Hope Florida, and we're so excited about the expansion of the fleet of Hope buses that are available so that we can be in more areas at the same time. My hope and desire is that when communities see the Hope bus coming, it inspires hope, and they know that a better tomorrow is nearby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for having me here. My name is Kevin Guthrie. I'm the Executive Director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management. The agency and the State Emergency Response Team have been a part of numerous response and recovery efforts for all kinds of disasters and situations that impact the great state of Florida. Each storm is very different. Each response and recovery effort is very different and unique, meaning that we at the state level must be prepared for absolutely anything and everything. Through the dedication of the leadership of Governor DeSantis and the First Lady, and the collaboration and support of our partners like Siobhan and other state agencies, the state continues to innovate so we can better serve our residents. FDM's collaboration with Hope Florida is another useful tool in our toolkit that allows us to reach more survivors who need help and find ways to connect them with the services and resources faster than ever before. In response to Hurricane Debbie, the State Emergency Response Team has completed over 1,200 missions, which involved assisting counties in obtaining vital resources for their residents, deploying state resources such as food and water, and managing flooding in impacted areas. This addition of Activate Hope to our response and recovery efforts has made it easier to connect survivors across broad regions with varying needs to recovery resources. As the First Lady and I were talking on the plane down here today, it's just simple. One simple number. 833-GET-HOPE. Go to the Hope Florida website at hopeflorida.com. It's just a one-stop shop to get everything you need. Don't worry about navigating everything else that's out there. Just go to the one location that has everything. When Floridians need disaster-specific resources, they can go to Activate Hope Forum. They can go to the Activate Hope Forum. Our FDM Unmet Needs team is proud to be a partner and a part of that process to assist them and connect them with the resources that we have. I'm happy to continue this partnership and to continue the innovative ways to better serve our residents. I want to thank the First Lady and Governor DeSantis for always thinking of ways to proactively connect with our residents to build a much more resilient Florida. I want to thank Siobhan and the many CERT agencies that help us out with this, with Hope Florida. It's not just one and two agencies, it is a host of about 30 agencies that get this done. And you might ask, well, what's happening right now? Well, right now, through Hope Florida, we have businesses and volunteer organizations like the Rotary, United Methodist, the Church of God, the Mennonites, Baptist, Plain Compassion Crisis Response, Faith Responders, Samaritan's Purse, and Nehama, who are right here inside of Sarasota and Manatee counties, providing muck and gut services and other services to help people get back on their feet. As we continue to support the recovery of those affected by Hurricane Debbie, I encourage everyone still needing assistance to utilize the resources like Activate Hope and Hope Florida. If you need information on updates as to what the division is doing, you can certainly go to floridadisaster.org/updates. But I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity as I'm sitting here today to say we are entering the peak weeks of hurricane season. They are upon us. As tropical cyclones may develop over the next 4 to 6, even 8 weeks, I want to remind everybody to stay vigilant and stay prepared. As the governor has said from this podium and many podiums before, we prepare for the worst and we hope for the best. But we will be prepared. Don't worry about that. You can download our 2024 hurricane guide at floridadisaster.org/guide. And also remember that this Saturday, August 24th through Friday, September the 6th, is another historic policy from the legislature and the governor, another disaster preparedness tax holiday that you can go out and restock or stock for disaster items. Again, Governor, thank you for your leadership. First Lady, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all you're doing for the division and all of us at the State Emergency Response Team.
Hello, my name is Sandra Tapfumine, and I'm the Chief of Emergency Management for Sarasota County. First, I'd just like to thank the Governor for coming here today, for the First Lady. This is a great initiative. We're very excited about it. Secretary Harris and Kevin Guthrie and his team at the Florida Division of Emergency Management. They have been incredibly supportive throughout this response and recovery efforts. You've already heard some of the things that they've mentioned, that they have supported us here at the local level, but they've also gave us damage assessment teams, commodities and equipment, and mutual aid teams that they have coordinated from across the state to come in to assist us at the Emergency Operations Center. We're grateful for our close working relationship with FDEM and Kevin and their proactive efforts to help us recover from Hurricane Debby. Florida has an incredibly strong network of response and recovery resources here in the state. We are very fortunate for that. And as just the local recipient of that, we can pick up the phone anytime to call Kevin and his team, and we know that they're going to bring their full support for whatever our needs are. We also want to thank all of the county staff and the EOC partners here locally that have put in tens of thousands of hours over the past 3 weeks to be able to provide resources in this response effort. And that includes our first responders that partnered with 4 urban search and rescue teams to go door to door to provide resources to our residents, including evacuations and rescues. Our 311 call center that held over 15,000 calls they've received into the center to provide information to our residents. We've served over 500 residents in the multi-agency resource center in collaboration with the state. And we distributed over 100 pallets of supplies in the field, including food, water, hygiene kits, and other donated items. And as you've heard, I just want to reiterate, this is super important because we're trying to get this information out to our residents as we hear that some people may still have needs. We do currently have dozens of nonprofits that are ready to come to your house to help with mucking and gutting and mold remediation. We have the new initiative through our Activate Hope, which is a wonderful way to get connected with them. You can also call 311, and we'd be happy to connect you with those resources. So please don't hesitate to call. Also, lastly, our Disaster Recovery Center and the Business Recovery Center are open at the Sarasota Christian Church off of Ashton Road. They've already seen over 600 people with the MARC efforts that we've had there the previous week. We would love for you to come and meet with FEMA face-to-face. The Small Business Administration is there. We have numerous state agencies and local agencies that have resources and information to help you in your recovery process. If you need more information on our county efforts, you can go to our website, scgov.net. There is a yellow banner up at the top. Just click on that, and there is a page dedicated to everything that we have going on here locally. Again, thank you to the Governor and his whole team for coming today. We appreciate you.
Thank you. And so Kevin mentioned the disaster preparedness tax holiday. It's a way to get the supplies you need and save some money. It's the second tranche of this. We had one before the start of hurricane season, or just as hurricane season was starting. And if you look out into the Atlantic right now, it's very calm. We don't see anything. But, you know, as Kevin said, we're right now, from now until probably the first week of October, historically, if you look at how these storms, it's usually in that time. Doesn't mean you can't get one before. It doesn't mean you can't. We got one in November a couple years ago, not as strong as the ones that typically come in August, September, early October. So just be prepared. And because it's calm now, that does not mean 2 weeks from now, Kevin and I aren't going to be at the Emergency Operations Center warning people we may have a storm. We might. And so you just got to be prepared. So I found that you know, if you have some of these things that you just have, and if you don't use them one season, you got to, whether it's the batteries, whether it's some of the other stuff that people want to see, do it. And we're happy to be able to deliver that relief to Floridians, and we'll continue to be pushing for that. I also just want to say, because I haven't you know, done one of these since Friday, but Florida, we're ranked #1 economy by CNBC 2 years in a row in all 50 states. If you look, we have a massive budget surplus, since I became governor, if you take all the debt the state accumulated from the 1840s to the present, we've retired 36% of that just in the last 5.5 years. We're on our way to retiring over half of the state's historical debt just in the period where I'm in office. And so the legislature put in more money for the accelerated debt repayment. We can repay it cheaper, save taxpayers even more money, and we're proud of that. We're proud of all the tax relief we've done. We're proud of what we've done for education, raising teacher pay, proud of supporting police and firefighters. I mean, we did for a few years, we were able to do a $1,000 bonus for every firefighter and police officer in the state of Florida. We have $5,000 bonuses for new police that are coming in and joining the force, particularly those from other states where they're not treated well. We've done more for infrastructure than at any time in Florida history by a country mile, including moving Florida forward, which is an additional $5 to $7 billion on top of a record-setting budget, so that these projects can get accelerated and alleviate traffic and congestion, which has been an issue even more so given the influx of people that we've seen. And I don't ask people to come. It's just, you know, we're a good place to be. It's a free country. So all that being said, we're proud of that. We've had lower unemployment than the nation as a whole, I think for like 45 consecutive months. Our economy, since I've been governor, has grown 22%. The nation's as a whole over the same period of time, 11%. So we're doubling up the economic growth of what you're seeing nationally. So we're in a good position to be able to critique some of the stuff you're hearing about what some of these people want to do after this election in terms of the economy. Fact is, the biggest issue we have to deal with is the interest rates and the high cost of groceries and all those things that were facilitated by the federal government borrowing, printing, and spending ungodly sums of money as if no one was going to have to pay the piper for that. Of course they are. So now you have Kamala going out there on Friday saying she has this economic plan that's going to somehow solve. And what does she say? She says, oh, the high grocery costs are because of price gouging by corporations. And she's going to set controls so that somehow they can't do that. I can tell you, if they do that, you know, we're going to end up having bread lines to be able to get food at the supermarket. It is a truly insane policy. It's an act of desperation because she cast the tie-breaking vote for Biden's stimulus in the spring of 2021. She cast the tie-breaking vote for the Orwellian named Inflation Reduction Act. So it's not just that she was vice president. She owns these policies that have driven up the cost of groceries, and make no mistake, it's because the supply chains were disrupted, all the inputs are more expensive. That's not just true for groceries, that's true for everything in the economy. So that price control is a joke, and even when you have liberal media saying that it's a joke, you know, because she's gotten fawning coverage since they did the old switcheroo. So that's really, really bad. It will not work. And it's almost like you have a fire, and what, you're going to have the arsonist go in to put out the fire? That's essentially what that means. It doesn't make any sense. But what's even more destructive than even that is her plan to tax unrealized capital gains at, I think, 25%. And so what does that mean? Well, if you look in the state of Florida, the #1 source of wealth for probably most Floridians is the value of their home. And when I became governor, homes were worth a certain amount. They're worth a lot more now than they were 5.5 years ago. So you have families who maybe they've lived in a place for 30 years. They've seen their home value go from $350,000 to maybe $500,000 or $600,000, and sometimes even double, depending on where you are in the state. So that is a really significant source of wealth. Particularly some of the elderly have sold homes and downsized, and they're able to get a nice windfall for themselves. Well, if you have Kamala's plan of taxing unrealized capital gains, when your home value goes up, you would be responsible on an annual basis for cutting the government a check for 25% of that increased value. Can you imagine if you had to do that? You buy a house for $500,000, and then the next year it's gone up to $550,000, and then they capture that gain, and you've got to write a check for a portion of that and just send the check to the government. I don't think people are going to be able to just scrounge up that much money. And then, oh, by the way, you give the check. Then if it goes down in the future, is the government going to rebate you? Of course not. So taxing unrealized gains is a truly imbecilic and insane policy. And I don't think even a lot of, I have not found anyone that could honestly justify this. Think about like if you buy stocks. So maybe you have a company you like, you buy some stocks, it goes up. You would, before you even sell it, even if you're just holding it, the value's gone up, you got to write a check to the government for the unrealized gain. Just think about what that would do to businesses, individuals, property owners. It would put this country into a depression. It would be the worst economic policy that's ever been done. But this is what she's proposing. So I would just say, it would hit Florida really hard because we've had people whose homes have gone up in value a lot over the last 5.5 years. Whatever your house has gone up, you'd have to write a check for 25% of that. Oh, and then, oh, by the way, after you do all that, when you actually go to sell your home, what are they going to charge you then? 44.6% on that capital gain if you made money on selling your home. This is truly insane, and it's emblematic, I think, and reflective of a candidate who's effectively an empty vessel, a candidate that is vapid, a vice president known more for her word salads than she is for any tangible accomplishments, and it's really, really dangerous. And look, I opposed whatever Hillary was selling in 2016, Obama's, all that. None of them ever did anything or tried to do anything that would be this destructive. So it may sound like, oh, unrealized gains, that's only going to hit a few hedge fund managers. No, if you did that, it would completely upend the way the economy functions, and it would destroy any incentive to want to make investments for yourself and your family going forward. And with that, I'm happy to take some questions. So about the flooding here, so people said look, you guys have your local government here. You have people in the legislature, I've heard, have them do something, right? The reality is when you have this much water, you are going to have some flooding. There's just no way around that. And it's true, as more things have been built up, it's harder to manage, for sure. That's really got to be determined on a local issue. We're not refereeing, where this goes or where that goes. We have a program in place with Fortify Florida, or Resilient Florida, where if you have a local government that wants to do something to make themselves mitigate potential storm damage, you can get a grant, a matching grant. And we've done over $1 billion, maybe $2 billion by now, to be able to help communities. But those decisions about what is built and what's not, that's going to be a local decision. And I think that you guys have the ability to govern. Our role in this is really to kind of help mitigate. We have funding available if people want it. But you have had people in local government that have made decisions, right? You just had an election. I know some of these issues are hot, so the voters will be able to make those determinations.
Unwinding process. Why are so many people who still should be on Medicaid losing their coverage in Florida?
Can you repeat your question?
Sure.
Yeah, so that's not factual. The department has performed over 4 million Medicaid redeterminations over the last year, and the vast majority of those individuals maintained coverage. We're committed to ensuring that anyone who is eligible maintains coverage. And for those who haven't, our economy is doing better. Income is a major part of individuals maintaining their Medicaid coverage. So if your income has gone up, it's going to affect your ability to maintain coverage.
Well, I'm not familiar with what kind of issues. What's that? Okay, yeah, I would ask Cord Bird that. I mean, I wasn't necessarily aware of that. I mean, we've obviously done very well in the last couple of elections. If they're not getting it out, then that's something that that they need to remedy that. I don't know if it was a website issue or whatever. I think that at least what I saw the results, but we have 67 counties, and it may have been different. So we'll get an answer for that for you, and I know Cord will press the issue, because one of the things that Florida stands apart from in the rest of this country is you actually have the results, I mean, usually by like 9 o'clock on election night. And that's good. That's confidence inspiring. There's not time for tomfoolery. You just have, how many people voted, you produce the results, everyone moves on and they accept the outcome. When it takes a long time, when you have votes coming in late, that is not the way to do business. And so hopefully it was just a website thing. Sometimes that happens, but we want to make sure that for the general election it's good. So Cord will certainly look at that as Secretary of State. He's done a really good job. And we do take pride in having quick results, because I think that California takes weeks to be able to determine who won an election. And that's just unacceptable. That's not inspiring. Oh, right here. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. A number of your candidates for school boards didn't quite make it ahead. What is your reaction to that? And also, Andrew Warren got the nod from the Democrats yesterday. If he happens to make progress during the November election, are you looking to fire him again?
So on the school board, what we said was, we want to support school board candidates in whatever capacity we can that believe in putting students first, that respect the rights of parents, and that believe schools should educate, not indoctrinate. And that really shouldn't even be debatable, but it is now, just given where some of the people want to take education. And so when there's candidates that line up, we've been supportive. 2022, we put a lot of resources in. We weren't in a position necessarily to do that because we've got so much other stuff going on. But when you look at like Duval County, that's 1 million people in that area. They now have a 4-3 majority. A majority of the school board in Duval County, which Joe Biden won in 2020, has school board members that believe in putting students first, that believe in protecting the rights of parents, and that believe in education, not indoctrination. That adds to what was done in Sarasota in 2022, what we've seen progress in Lee, Brevard County, even Miami-Dade. So there's no other state in the country where you have counties, areas of that size, where you've seen those candidates win and win consistently. Now, yesterday, you're going into like some of these areas that Republicans have never been competitive in, like in the heart of Tampa, some of these other places. But my view is you need to field candidates and run them all the way across the board. You shouldn't be seeding any of these elections. And what's happened, I think, over the years, and we worked to counteract that in 22. I think there was an imbalance again just last night. Is the school unions, this is their Super Bowl. I mean, they take the money, the dues, and they put it into electioneering, and particularly in a nonpartisan election, they can market their candidates one way to some voters, one way to others, and that's been going on for a long time. I think 22, there was a lot of resources brought to bear that helped counteract that, but we definitely saw that, particularly in those blue areas. But just think about it. You're now in a situation where someone's celebrating on the Dem side that they held an area, a school board in a blue district. I mean, like usually that would just be a fait accompli. So if you look at the movement throughout Florida over the last several years, you have way, way more people on school boards that will put the students first, that do believe in parents' rights, and are not going to use the schools to indoctrinate. And that's really, I think, going to be the secret to continued success in education. And oh, by the way, we're #1 in education 2 years in a row by U.S. News and World Report. That was not true in the state of Florida 20 or 30 years ago. It is true now. So this is something that's really, really significant. And but ultimately, there was a lot of candidates that won in 22. There were some that won in really significant races like Duval. Ultimately, these candidates that won really put in a lot of effort, and they should get the credit. We were helpful, I think, as much as we could be, probably more so 2 years ago. But all these candidates work really hard, and it's important, and especially when you have an uphill battle. you got to do it. And you're usually not going to win those the first time out. But what I found just as a former baseball player, you don't swing, you're not going to hit a home run. So you got to swing and you got to be in the game. So I think you're going to see some of those races where some of the candidates that were standing for parents' rights, standing for student achievement, some of them that came up short, that's going to be something they can build on for future election cycles. And so ultimately, I think I'm optimistic, and particularly if you look at where we were 4 or 5 years ago versus where we are now, there's much more interest on these school boards in protecting the rights of parents. There's much more interest than ever in saying the student should come first, not a school union. And then, of course, the issue that's been around the country that, these schools need to educate. Have the classical mission of a school, don't try to go in these other areas. I haven't seen you. There's a state attorney there that I think's done really well. I think all the law enforcement are likely going to be supporting Susie. A lot of those people came to me and were the ones that really complained about Warren's dereliction of duty. So I think that'll work itself out. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Yes, ma'am.
DeSantis, there's so many people who are hurting the pockets of Manatee, Sarasota counties with the flooding. Will Hope Florida be able to really get them the funds? Because some of these people are looking at $150,000 in repairs, some even more.
So Hope Florida, in and of itself, is not going to get. What it'll be is that is part of the way to connect those people in need. So, for example, we turned on the home repair program. So this is a program that I started after Hurricane Ian. And what we do is we bring in supplies. So we will buy supplies, and we get a good deal from Home Depot wherever we go. Do we do Home Depot this time? And Lowe's. And we get it. But then these groups come in, and their job and their mission is to fix homes. So we get them what they need, and then they provide the labor to go in and fix people's homes. And so we've seen that done throughout, particularly in Southwest Florida. So you're going to have an ability to do that. We also got approved for individual assistance. Now that's through FEMA. That's the Hope Florida is not going to be able to solve the inefficiencies of the federal government. I think it's done a lot. It isn't going to be able to do that. But you do have individual assistance now turned on for FEMA. Kevin also has that we started our own temporary trailer program, because what you had was you had people in these areas that FEMA, first of all, it would take forever for FEMA to get them temporary housing, but then they'd want to put them in a trailer park. Well, a lot of people don't want to live in that because you have all these things put in, and it's just not normal life. So they rather have the trailer on their property while they rehab it. It makes total sense. So Kevin, and we started this program, he got the trailers on there much earlier than has ever been done. He's got that available. Now, I don't know how much the demand for that has been, but we're standing by to be able to help. So I think that there's a lot of resources out there. I think that while there was significant damage, the damage was contained in pockets around the state rather than the big sweep that we saw with Ian, where it just poured through the entire middle part, southwest all the way middle part of the state. And so Hope will be connecting people to those types of resources. Now, Hope does have a charitable arm. There may be opportunities to do some grants, but I don't think that ultimately is going to be really what Hope is moving the needle on. I think Hope's going to move the needle on making sure people know. I mean, we would go to different places. I remember after Ian, someone needed internet, and you had a little business area. The companies were telling them it's going to take a long time. So we bring in Elon Musk's Starlink and just drop it there, and guess what? They had internet on the strip of businesses that would be able to do it. Well, if you tell Hope that you don't have internet, your business can't get up, Hope is likely going to have that. And we have Starlink available too. I think most of that was probably worked out. It seems the connectivity happened pretty good. I think it's mostly the damage from the flooding, and I think the damage from some of the other rising water that we're going to really have to contend with. All right, it's been great to see you guys. God bless, and let's get it done with all this Hope Florida. Thank you.